Hey, welcome everybody. I'm Chester Elton. This is my dear friend and co-author, Adrian Gostick. Wave to the fans, Adrian.
Hey, everybody.
We are delighted to give you an inside look, another strategy that we have in our newly released book, Anxiety at Work, 8 strategies on how to build your team's resilience, handle uncertainty, and get stuff done. And there it is, available at fine bookstores everywhere. So, Adrian, it's really interesting. We've talked a lot lately and published in our gratitude journal on LinkedIn about this idea of being an ally, having people in your workplace feel accepted. And it's gotten a lot of play. Why do you think that?
Well, I think so many people have felt this way. They've felt like an other. And we think, sometimes those in the majority in a workplace don't understand what it feels like to be marginalized, to feel on the outside, whether you're a person of color, whether you're LGBTQ plus, whether you are a religious minority, maybe you're the only Muslim in a workplace. And that's just a short list of people who can feel like they are on the outs. And what we really have to do is be able to embrace those people. And unfortunately, many leaders just don't believe this exists. It's like unfortunately, we're like horses wearing blinders. We only see what's in front of us, what we want to see, and maybe don't see the experience. But I think it's really amazing is how many people have felt this way, right? Like others.
Yeah. I love in the book we talk about if you want to remember what that feels like, maybe you are in the majority where you work, is remember when you were in grade school and you were the last one picked on the softball team, right? Or for basketball, you felt like the other, you felt marginalized. Well, strategy 6 is all about becoming an ally. So we've got a short presentation. We'd love for you to put in the chat box ideas that you have around being an ally. And as always, we love the international audience. We've got Fouts from Tunisia. We've got Noy Guin from we got Tatiana from France. We've got
Claudia from Mexico, Colombia.
Yeah. Mohammed from India.
Yeah.
So anyway, welcome. We love that you're tuning in to give us your time. And so Adrian, kick us off around this strategy number 6, becoming an ally at work.
Right. And we've probably all felt this way at some point in our lives. Now, we're not saying that, I know how it feels to be this person. No. But we all know how it feels to be, the last person picked on the the soccer pitch, the last, or the one person who is sort of out from the group. We've all felt that way at some point. Now imagine that is your experience at work every day. You are the only gay person. You are the only person of color. You're the only woman. You are the only, and then you begin to feel extremely marginalized. You begin to feel, sometimes these just microaggressions we'll find out in a minute about happen to you. Somebody will say, well, Joan, you're the only woman on the team. What do you think about this? Or, Stan, you're gay. What do you think? Like somebody would say, Chester, you're white. What do you think about this? We just put these incredible pressures on people and make them feel excluded. We were doing a session. We had probably 800 people on this session a couple of nights ago when we first launched the book, Chester and I. And we were presenting all these information. And which question was it that the host asked, Jess, that got everybody talking?
Okay, you're going to quiz me here, and I'm not going to.
It was the ally question, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. It really was. It fits so nicely into all the diversity and inclusion that we've been talking about lately. And it is really interesting. I love the way you put it in context. No one would say, well, Adrian, you're a white guy. What do you think? Yeah. And yet we'll say, well, you're Asian. You're probably good at math. Run the numbers.
Yeah. And then and we'll talk about those microaggressions that happen. But first off, a lot of leaders are saying, I've heard this word. It's just PC. Why would I worry about being an ally? Well, one of the things, let's just kind of run through a few of these ideas, is that, bias still does occur in our work culture. Yep. When Chester and I were writing Anxiety at Work, you had suggested, Jess, we have a chapter in here about people who feel anxiety because they are marginalized. And I kind of thought, well, a couple of older white guys writing about this, probably not appropriate, right?
Right.
We talked to our editor, and what did she say?
Ally, you're the guys that need to be the allies. You're the ones that need to stick up for people. And that really opened a wonderful door for us, isn't it? About, and again, back to the schoolyard, who did you stick up for? Were you the one that made fun of, or were you the one that stood up for? And I love that idea of being an ally and being a friend, because boy, when you don't have that at work, it's tough to come to work. It just is, all that work in Gallup. Do I have a best friend at work? Well, I think the question now is, do I have an ally? Do I have someone I trust? Yeah. Do I feel safe? Not just psychologically. Do I feel emotionally safe at work?
Exactly. So many groups that we interviewed as we wrote Anxiety at Work, that said they feel like others. Women in the workplace, people of color, those on the LGBTQ plus spectrum, religious minorities, those with disabilities, etc. Now, Chester, what are the benefits though? Why would I care? If I'm a leader, why would I care about doing this? What's the benefit for me and my organization?
It's all about productivity, right? If I'm worried, if I'm distracted, I'm not focusing on my work. I'm going to be less innovative. I'm going to be more afraid to voice my opinion. So, as leaders, we keep saying, look, diversity is strength. Diversity is more innovative. Well, yes, it is, as long as I feel comfortable participating. Boy, if there's anything that's holding me back, that's going to cut down on my productivity, my ability to contribute to the team, and ultimately the innovative products and services that we can develop. Did I get that right?
Well, good answer. Yeah, that was a B plus. No, that was great. Yeah. Really, we're using all of our team's talents and abilities. You're exactly right. If we feel like an other, there's very little likelihood I'm going to give you my best ideas, my best work. And this is what it's costing organizations. We found a $64 billion estimated cost annually in bias, in people not feeling accepted in the workplace. And look, of those who feel bias in the workplace, if we have our blinders on and don't see this, 80% would not recommend their company as a place to work, which is one of the engagement measures that organizations have to use today. And employees who feel bias, none of these should be a surprise. Yeah. 3 times more likely to be disengaged, 2.5 times more likely to withhold ideas, 3 times more likely to quit, right?
Right. And, our dear friend, Dory Clark, she put this in wonderful perspective. Dory is this wonderful entrepreneur. And she said, look, that stress of hiding, it leaves less energy for work, less focus on work. And I love the way she says this, says, when you have to focus too much on what people are thinking about you, it's a surefire recipe for anxiety. How am I perceived? Am I accepted? Yeah. That's a lot of anxiety. That's a lot of stress. And you think about it, that's not just a one-off. That's every day.
It is, and Dory, a professor at Duke University, very accomplished author. And I love what she says here. If you've ever been in junior high, which we all have, you know what this feels like. When you're 11, 12, 13, you think everybody's looking at you. Well, if you feel like an other in a workplace, you feel like everybody's looking at you. And when I love what she added too, she says, people kind of sense this about you, that you have the secret. Maybe you're the only Muslim man in the organization, and so you don't really know where to pray during the day. And so you seem a little bit more withdrawn. And she says, she's, from her experience, she says, typically admitting what you're feeling and you're going through is the least of everybody's worries. They're all thinking, oh, he doesn't like me, or he's, maybe he's doing something illegal. Everybody starts filling the vacuum. Now, it doesn't mean it's easy, nor, she says, does it mean that you can bring somebody out if they're not ready. But it was really interesting to hear her perspective.
Yeah, it is. We feel like there's something just off. Right. Yeah. And I love, first off, I love that you found a picture of you as a child.
Yeah. There's me. I was shocked by coming into this world. Yeah.
It's still marvel that you're here. There are these, and I know it's not intentional. They're just dumb things that we say, right? Yeah. Like, I don't see color. Well, are you blind? Yeah. Clearly there's color. I remember, back when everybody was trying to be so politically correct, they'd describe somebody in the room and they'd go to great lengths to not say they were black. Yeah. Say, she's the only black person in the room. If you just said, that delightful black, it would have been a lot easier. So Walk us through this, Adrian, because this is that passive aggressive stuff, silly
Right.
things we say, unintentional for the most part, and yet can be very damaging.
Oh, absolutely. And leaders think they're being so, so inclusive by saying, I don't see color. And as many Black people told us in this, and Asian people and others saying, that's not what we expect. We have eyes. If we do, we can see. What we're asking is to reduce the bias that comes from seeing somebody who's Black and thinking they are a certain way. So the goal is not to be blind to diversity, but regulate our innate impulses and make decisions based on that. Oh, like you mentioned earlier, that Asian person must be good at math. Somebody who's African American, where are you from? Detroit. Making those sort of innate decisions that the people we spoke with were trying to reduce. They also said, look, don't do this. Don't try to convince a person from a marginalized group of all the things that have gone wrong in your life to elevate their issues. Oh my gosh, yes, I've had issues too. I was born poor. I was discriminated against because I was in China once and I was the only white person. It's like, okay, fine, but you don't understand my experience, right?
Right. I love the diversity we've got that has showed up. Margaret from Poland and Dr. Mohammed Mubarak, Carrie Brown, who shows up every time we're here. We love that you show up, Carrie. We got Margaret, or we've got Zaire from Springfield, Massachusetts. It's really interesting. I'd love for you to put in the chat your experiences of maybe feeling a bit like other. Carrie Brown says, actually, unconscious bias is easily identified in most workplaces and teams. And I would agree with you. Once you sort of have your antenna up, I think that is easily identified. The question is then, what do you do about it? Do you step forward or do you become the ally in the workplace that people are looking for so that they'll become safe? So love for you to put in the chat box some of your experiences. What have you done or what has been done in your workplace that made everybody feel safe and feel included and not like an other?
I love that too. A couple other things we heard from those in these marginalized communities. We didn't want our voices to be heard here. We wanted to hear from others. They said, also, don't ante up by saying, oh, you're gay. Oh, my daughter's gay. Or if you're Black, oh, I've got lots of Black friends. You don't have to ante up here. Just treat me like a human being. And by the way, don't preach about your wokeness. We saw this with the Black Lives Matters protests where people started seeing, maybe for the first time, they became woke and they wanted to, oh my gosh, I'd never seen this before. Many Black people we talked to said, okay, I appreciate that you are feeling that way, but you should have known this all along, is the idea. This has been happening. So you don't have to preach about your wokeness. What you can do is show that you are an ally. And we'll get to that in just a minute. I want to talk about this idea of microaggressions we heard, though. This is really a big deal. That, again, if we have blinders on, we don't see this. And so it could be, some Black men told us, like, I'll be in the elevator and a white woman, the doors will open, a white woman will be coming in and she'll stop and think, oh, do I want to get in there? And she says, even though if it's just for a second, it is a little microaggression and it eats at me. They would say, like, I work here. I'm dressed as a professional. I work. You've probably seen me around. And yet, and it just eats at people. Or, a woman in a workplace, she's one of the few, maybe in an engineering department, and she has a hard time having even her voice heard because of the noise and commotion. Or even little things like a gay person said, oh, John, you must love that musical. Why? Well,
show tunes, yeah.
A disabled person is, oh, slow down, Speed Racer, as they go by. These little things that can really add up, can't they, Chess, to people?
Yes, and like I say, in most cases, you think you're making people more comfortable. You think it might be even a little funny.
Yeah.
Just be sensitive, and it comes back to so much of what we talk about so often, Adrian, is know people's stories, know their story. Yeah. What is their background? What is their family? What are they passionate about? What do they want to do? I love this. Listen up, sponsor, stand up and advocate. Listen, you know what? Everybody has a story. And you should know a little bit of that story. You don't have to stalk them and memorize the names of all their pets and so on. The fact is, you should know, a little bit about their background, a little bit about their family. What is it that they're really passionate about in the workplace? And listen. Listen to that story. It'll give you all kinds of insights on what to say, and in a lot of cases, what not to say. Now, when it comes to being a sponsor, we work with a lot of companies where they really do focus on culture. And part of that, in many cases, it's worked really well. They've got executives that sponsor various groups. Single moms in the workplace, they're looking for, tips on childcare and how they balance work and home. African-American groups, we talk about the LGBTQ plus groups. And what's really wonderful is when you are that sponsor, they all have an executive sponsor. That is so important because it gives everybody permission. We've gone out of our way to give you a senior executive. And what does that tell everybody? This is safe. In fact, it's encouraged. Let's talk about things. And then once you're a sponsor and you get all that information, what are you doing? Back to bullet number 1. You're listening. You're taking that information back and you're doing something with it. Now, the stand up and advocate is a little different, isn't it, Adrian?
Yeah, standing up is that you really are in meetings, you're advocating for people. You're not pandering. But, one great example we had in the book was a woman who said, look, I was one of the few software engineers, but my boss would say in meetings that I wasn't even in. Julia has an interesting point. When she thinks about this, she says, da, da, da. And I would hear about this later. He was really standing up for me as an expert. And I wasn't even in the room. There are little things that we can do to elevate, to invite to meetings that maybe people normally wouldn't be at, to give them chances on assignments, to really stretch and grow, to really be thinking about how we can include people who may feel like others. Which leads us to this last point of advocating. The idea with advocating is you really are a champion. You are somebody who is going to go to bat for those people in your care, and you're going to find ways. So, great example here. Susan Wojcicki from YouTube, the CEO of YouTube. Now, she said, she says, I had to find an advocate. And sometimes we have to do this. So Susan says, I learned about an important invitation-only conference for top leaders in tech, but my name was not on the list. And she says, in fact, as she read the list, it was almost all male. So she said, I started to question, well, do I even belong? Is YouTube powerful enough? As we all know, it is. So she says, rather than let it go, I turned to Bill Campbell, who is if you've read his book about the millionaire mind, he's a famous executive coach in the Silicon Valley area. He said, and she said he had a lot of influence. So I called him up, and he recognized immediately I had a rightful place. And so he said, give me a day. He starts calling, and he calls back, and he says, okay, you're invited. And she said, instead of feeling like, well, I don't want to go if they don't want me. No, she said, I want to go because I need to represent our company. If I'm not there, our company is going to lose out. I could be offended, yes, but I'm not going to be. I need to find an advocate, and I need to go. And so that's a different way of thinking about things. And she says addressing imbalance requires those who have power and influence to extend their privilege. And I love what Susan did here. She asked for somebody to extend that privilege. And that's okay too. It's okay to ask somebody to be your ally, right, Chess?
Absolutely. I just want to pop this up. We are big fans of Ann Grady. She's here, and fabulous story. Boy, if you want to look into somebody's great work, look up Ann Grady, follow Ann Grady. Her life story and getting to know her and how she's become an incredible advocate for people is heartwarming. I love that in the chat box, there are some interesting things you can do here that are fun and not obtrusive. Zaire says we celebrate diversity by offering different culture days like Asian American Month and Veterans Month, and take time to thank people for their service, and potluck dinners. Carrie Brown says Friday potlucks, you get to know people and celebrate their food. I used to love that when we do that, right? We'd have like a Hispanic or Mexican food, and then you'd have Asian food, and there's two things you can always talk to people about, right, Adrian? their family, and their food.
Except, I'm British, and so you really don't want us bringing food. I mean, it's
Mushy peas. Yeah, mushy peas.
Really what we're known for. Yeah.
Yeah, blood pudding. Tell you what, you want to alienate everybody in your team, bring blood pudding to the potluck.
Yeah. I love what Ryan Martin says, love learning about others' background and experiences to provide the team valuable insights and perspectives that elevate our group thought and effort. I love that idea of, what Chester
Who knew
said
that
earlier.
A banker, Ryan is a banker. Who knew that a banker could be that,
warm and fuzzy.
empathetic.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Thanks for coming, Ryan. Appreciate the support, man.
Well, I love this here too. Look, this is the payoff, right? What do allies do? They use their influence to bring people from underrepresented groups into new circles, including colleagues of all genders, races, ethnicities, abilities, ages, body shapes and sizes, religions, sexual orientations, and to bring anxiety levels down. That's our goal, right, Jess?
Yeah. When you've got that just gnawing thing in the back of your brain that you don't belong, that's just hard to get up and come to work every day. And when you become the champion of someone that is going through that, boy, I'll tell you, not only do you learn more about different cultures and different people and appreciate them more, productivity goes up, relationships get deeper, turnover goes down, all those things. It really does come down to one thing, doesn't it, Adrian? Does my manager care about me? Do my teammates care about me? Do they care about me enough to know my story? Do they care about me enough to defend me, to stick up for me, to be an ally? And I'll tell you, as leaders, the way you conduct yourself gives everybody else permission to do the same. Be the ally leader. Allow your people the privilege and the opportunity to be allies to everybody else on the team. When you think about it, it's just the right thing to do.
It absolutely is. So thank you, everybody, for joining us today and sharing, allowing us to share a few ideas from our new book, Anxiety at Work. One of the chapters on being an ally. As you succinctly and eloquently summed up there, Chester, this really is one of those things that we have to start doing as leaders, looking for those people who feel like they are marginalized in our teams. What is it that we can do to bring them in and embrace them and lift them too, give them opportunities. So, again, thank you for giving us a few minutes of your time today.
Yeah, we love the community. We love that you're supporting our work. Please check out Anxiety at Work on Amazon. We've got a wonderful podcast also called Anxiety at Work, where we interview, leaders that have gone through and dealt with anxiety, the tips that they've done with their teams. We talk to doctors, we talk to physicians. Give it a shot. We're really proud of this podcast and the good that it's doing, as well as anxietyatworkbook.com. Lots of good stuff there. So we really hope that wherever you are, that you can take away from this episode the importance of being an ally, getting to know people's stories, making sure they feel included, accepted, and cared for. And on that note, Adrian, what would you add? I mean, it's just
thanks, everybody. Thanks, Mary Santiago is saying thanks. Carrie Brown, thanks everybody for joining us today. And that's awesome. Thanks for joining us.
You bet. Take care and be well. See you again soon, I hope.